It's my pleasure then to introduce our first speaker. Nikki, I know you've done this so many times, and we appreciate you taking on the role of the first speaker today. And so Nikki is going to talk with us about hybrid meetings. Something that's very interesting to all of us is that we moved to Zoom meetings and the various types of webinar type based meetings that we could have. But now people are asking for a different type of meeting, which is we want what we had, we want what we got during the pandemic, and now we want to combine the two, huh? And so Nikki, take it away, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I get us start us off, and yeah, hybrid meetings are a whole new bear or beast, if you will. I happened to be in a big district meeting when I was talking about doing this presentation, and really got to ask the people, even in that meeting, what their thoughts were. It kind of became a Zoom complaint session, but we took a spin on that, and I wrote down some more general things, maybe kind of common sense, best practices type approach. So that is what we're going to kind of start with. Oops. Okay. So the biggest complaints we have heard from folks is that has been somewhat of a shift just in the pandemic in general is the online calendars are so much more important nowadays. A virtual meeting best practices, the relationships and how to maintain those relationships. And then I'm just going to briefly touch on because other people are doing a much better presentation later on open meeting laws and how we had to change those a little bit in Colorado. Sorry, my clicker's going a little slow. Okay, there we go. So I don't know about you, but I tended to be one of the post-it calendar extraordinaires, not necessarily up to date with my online calendar. So some were post-it, some paper. Um, and that is really challenging when folks are trying to book meetings with you, trying to get a hold of you. The other thing I noticed is that people were booking back-to-back meetings with me, and I had no idea. So we kind of came up with this best practices with some of our conservation districts and their employee association is to use their online calendar and make sure as best you can that it's up to date. And I found for me specifically on big grants that we have reportings is to block the time for those projects and budgets, uninterrupted time where people can't book a last minute meeting with you. And then, of course, checking regularly for any updates. I know there's a lot of different applications that folks use. A lot of you guys use Microsoft Outlook and calendars that way. In Colorado, we're on the Google system and Google Suites, but really we found it helpful to utilize and update our work locations so that we could say, hey, so-and-so is going to be in the office this day. I really need to talk to them in person or maybe help them do something. And I'm allowing us to adjust schedules and kind of be flexible in that aspect. The other biggest thing is that it's great that you can schedule all these meetings, but it's also good to just check in with people. There's no more water cooler chats or hallways or over the cubicle walls, how's it going? But just to actually make the initiative and take a step and call and just check in on a coworker and keep those relationships going. And the biggest thing from our boards and our producers is call the phone still work. Not everything has to be on camera, and they appreciate those phone calls a lot. So this isn't necessarily about headphones, but making sure you have good sound, good microphones is so key. I don't know about you guys, but it is hard to go from Zoom to Google Meets to Microsoft Teams, and depending on which partner we're meeting with, it depends on what software they use, and every single time it ends up switching your microphone for you, whether you like it or not. So it's always kind of a challenge to keep up to date with that. The other thing is if you are hosting something, if there's any way, and I'm not talking about you, Ray, but for us for board meetings, especially if there's any way to make a co-host, we do have connectivity issues across the state, as I'm sure others do. So making sure there's a co-host, one, power issues happen, the meeting can keep going. And two, it always helps to have someone who can actually share the screen and slides and presentations while you have other people running the meeting so that they can see folks. If you're the one hosting, we really utilize the waiting rooms or registrations to prevent those uninvited attendees we kind of all learned about during COVID. And of course, general things like mute when not speaking, join early if you can, and again, that check your system. Um, and we've also taken more collaborative, shared notes in meetings. Our soil team has a running Google Doc, if you will, of notes from every single meeting. So everything is documented. If we miss one, we can get caught up quickly and we're kind of off and running. Another big key is on relationships. And this came out very strong in virtual settings and during COVID is that those personality types, introverts, extroverts, who can really excel working remotely, who really needs that personal in-person communication style. And if you have the time, which we can't with everybody, but if we do have the time, especially with our own teams and our own organizations, is to take the time to build those relationships, learn the other person's preference and what that might be, and then schedule that time to meet with them. And of course, as we all learned, practice patience and empathy, even still. This is my very brief introduction on the open meeting laws. The hybrid meetings especially are challenging. You have the sound connectivity and also trying to engage, the folks in the room typically engage very well, but it's hard. How do you keep those folks on the outside virtual as part of that meeting too? So conversations, making sure we're following open meeting law and what that might be. In Colorado, were able to change that before we had no phone or no video call options, but had some gray area on phones. Maybe like one board member could call in to constitute a quorum. And now we can have those virtual, in-person, or hybrid meetings. The biggest key with those are we still have to do the meeting notice and post that, including how to attend. Now, we have recommended the districts not to post the link on their agenda on the website and anywhere where anyone can get to. And it seems to be under our law okay for them to say, contact the district manager, contact the admin to get the direct link to join the meeting. Also, you can do registrations for that as well. And we've had to make sure that no matter what it is with a virtual or hybrid meeting, that we need to have a call-in option for those really remote areas that can't have the video going that long so that they have the option to attend. The general purpose, right, is that you're doing your best to focus on accessibility and making sure that you're attempting an earnest attempt to make sure that the meeting is open to the public. Got all tied up there. And the other thing we've all dealt with, of course, is a Zoom or virtual meeting burnouts. It's a lot easier to work a couple hours at home remotely. Technology learning curves, especially as everything seems to be updating every other week and trying to keep up with that, and just the generational adaptability. There's a heavy turnover in general over the last year, it seems, in locations, and increasing retirements and making sure that all of our staff are up to speed and have the tools they need to succeed. But there are some positives. We have more team collaboration with those hybrid meetings across the state. We get diversified boards and attendees, maybe some younger generations that have a family, they can call into a meeting at night for an hour versus driving to town and sitting in a board meeting. So there's some locations that has worked, some where it's still struggling. It really depends on the area and participants, of course. Our team has seen productivity increase greatly, and then we're working on constantly strengthening our resiliency and how we go forward from there. So at the beginning, we kind of had a quote we were kind of looking back or working with to look forward to. And the goal really is to create that digital environment that fosters and encourages communication styles so that everybody can engage. So it's challenging for sure, but we're all still learning and adjusting and hoping that what we're doing is in the best interest of our producers, which is always the end goal. And that's it.
Thanks so much, Nikki. Outstanding presentation.